Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Two ways you can get a hold of us today through the interview. You can either email Zach at zachballinger.com. We'll answer your questions as we go throughout the interview, as well as we are streaming live via YouTube. So if you're in YouTube, pop those questions in the comment section. We'll make sure to get to them at the end. Without further ado, Thomas, thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you for having me, Zach.
So, Thomas, I want to jump right in and ask you. So, what is your title? What do you do career wise?
Currently, I am a senior internal auditor with the state of Virginia government. Um, I am I am an auditor basically, in ensuring that processes are in place right.
Awesome. So, I'm going to ask you about your education, but we kind of talked a little bit before the show how your career evolved. And so, a lot of the guests that listen to the show are usually entry level, or they may be in college or high school. Can
Mhm.
you kind of walk me through your career journey, your major, how you got into accounting, and how you became an internal auditor?
Yes, absolutely. I've started my career in college. I wanted to get into business to some degree. I wanted to be in the office, dress up, wear a suit. But I started my career in business management, and business management is very broad. So I had a professor that was very instrumental in my journey, and he influenced me to switch to accounting because he saw some skills in me that I didn't even know I had in accounting, and that's when I switched my major into accounting. Accounting is something that's going to be around for a while. So if that's something that you're interested in, it's not a bad field to get into. I started in accounting, and most people in college, you're 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 tasked with doing an internship, and I was fortunate to get an internship with one of the big four public account firms, Deloitte and Touche at the time, and they call it Deloitte now. And that's one of the companies or firms that you're on a they see on your resume, and they immediately know that, or they initially know that this person is trained properly. They went through the initial grind or learning tools that they need to be in this field. Um, so starting at Deloitte definitely spurred my career to where I am today. It gave me the tools and knowledge that I need. And yeah, that's my journey to how I came into the working ranks. But it started with business management and then accounting, and then I started the internship, and then Deloitte was the place that I started my career.
Gotcha. And so, as far as your career now, somebody might be in the audience and they might say, well, what is an internal auditor?
Mhm.
So, what do you do for your job on a day to day basis? What does that look like? Can you give us some concepts of an overall day?
Absolutely. I guess to 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 take a step back, external auditing and internal auditing, they're both auditing, but one is going to focus on an outside entity coming in to look at a company's records, and usually it's financial. It's heavily financial based. That's what, for example, when I worked at Deloitte, I would go and audit Dominion Energy Power, which is or I think in Georgia they have Georgia Power. So you may have a company that go and look at their financials because a lot of investors or individuals interested in the bottom line make investments, and so those auditors are given the public assurance that those numbers are right. The internal audit side will work on the processes in place at in house to filter into those numbers. So each of those numbers will have a process behind it. So the internal audit side will help with the controls to make sure those numbers are right. On my end, I do a lot of operational audits. So I'm looking at processes that help an agency stay safe, or I'm looking at processes that help us to fit the mission. Um, that's kind of the difference between internal auditing is usually more detailed, because you're dealing with management more. So you're not gonna. I'm not saying external audit is easier. Both of them have their complications, but you want more detailed information because the individuals at the company know so much about the company, where you need to be a little more detailed.
What do you love about your job? What are you passionate about? What gets you going?
Well, I work on the government side, so I feel that my job is the opportunity to give back. And I say give back to the public, give back to the citizens of the state. An example I've had, also internal audit, you do investigations. That's kind of fun. You actually investigate people, and the unfortunate situation is that sometimes people lose their jobs, but you are working to ensure things are done right. The example I had in mind was an investigation I did where contractors, a lot of contractors will go to state government to obtain funds for their services, which is great. But sometimes contractors are not checked properly, and they can just take advantage of situations. So I did an investigation where I found that some of these guys were reporting that they work in 8 hours, but when they really working two. And it sounds like it's a small thing, but when you're dealing with $5 to $10 million, and then the money that's coming from the government is also going to people's funds and salaries, it's a ripple effect. So that's a small part of me helping someone's salary, someone tax dollars that they're paying that they can reduce paying. But we have a number of situations that some people just everyone is not on the same mind, and some of the viewers career wise, when they get to that level, you'll figure out that some people are not in the same mindset as you are. Some people just want to go to work and come home, and which is fine. But some people really wanted to make a change, and I feel like I'm at that point right now where it's a lot of things that happen over and over and over, and a lot of times money has been lost unknowingly, and so people need to bring this to the forefront.
That's awesome. It's a great call and a great responsibility as well. Now, on the flip side, this is kind of hard for some individuals to answer. Others they know it right off the top of their head. But what's something challenging about your job, or something maybe difficult, or people need to know behind the scenes that is kind of frustrating?
The challenge is people do not like auditors. They, as soon as you hear an auditor is coming, it's either, oh no, what did I do? Or why did you come here? Or why can't you come another day? It's all these distractors. But with internal auditing, it's not as easy, but you try to say you don't want to say you're here to help. You want to keep that separation, or the segregation of duties, but um, but you want to ensure them that you're here to add value. Um, and you can show that by your past work. You can say, "Hey, I did this report right here. It turned to something that benefit the agency. I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to play police." And also, you can show that in your work. Like, you're not going to point out everything. Like, "Hey, this color is wrong in this report," or "Hey, you didn't sign this one out of a million. That's a mistake." So you try to show them that you're actually there helping. But the challenge is, yes, that no one really wants to see you there. You can say all the fluff and I'm here to help and I'm here to add value, but you're still in their wheelhouse. But yeah, that's the challenge part about the job.
There's the old saying out there that you better run if somebody shows up from the government and says, "I'm here to help." So
Yeah,
certainly can understand
absolutely.
some of the challenges you might have to deal with. So let's talk about, how many years have you done this particular career? You kind of talked about how you worked up that ladder. How long have you been in auditing altogether?
It's a great question. In auditing altogether, going back to 2000, I think I started 2007. So it is 13, 14 years just starting. So
Gotcha.
14 years overall in audits in some form or capacity.
And one of the other questions, I know you majored in accounting, but for auditing, whether it be external or internal, do you, two-part question, do you need a master's degree? And second of all, do you have to have any other certifications?
Uh, you do not need a master's degree, or I guess to get started, you do not need a certification. Um, I'm I, I'm actually working on a certification myself now, but I think when before a lot of accountants were deciding to go to grad school for the 150 credit hour requirement for the CPA, and that's why I went to grad school because I'm eventually going to sit for my CPA or whatnot. And they tell you, and I'm gonna tell you too, if you think about doing it, do it early, because what's going to happen in your career, you're going to get busier, you're going to get more responsibility. So if you can knock it out certifications early, knock it out, get it out the way, get that behind you. But yeah, I don't think you need a master's to get started. However, to set yourself apart, and if it's affordable for you, I'm not saying God has spent $100,000 in and whatever the cost of a school may be. But if it's affordable to you, you can do it. Go for the additional degree.
Gotcha. And now let's take you back into a time portal. We're going to take you back into when you're growing up in elementary school. Was
Mhm.
there a dream job you grew up wanting to be? It doesn't need to be. I'm assuming it's not an auditor in the second or third grade, but what was a dream career for you?
Ironically, I like numbers, which is weird. I always like numbers, and I'm slowly liking science right now. So actually, I got a master's in science and accounting. Ironically, but I wanted to be an athlete. I think that's kind of like most dreams, and I did play sports. Um, but I do have an appreciation for numbers. I have an appreciation for figuring things out. And you do that a lot within auditing, whether it's external or internal. And and what I get to is or what I the appreciation I get too when you do figure it out, you may point out something that that the auditee or the client may not have seen. You're like, hey, did you think about this? Because again, sometimes people are doing something over and over and over again. They may miss something. I had one client. This is kind of hilarious. When I first started, this is kind of off a little bit, but when I first started, and auditors are taught to validate, to confirm, to get evidence. And I had one client when I first started, I was a rookie, a freshman or a first year, and I asked the guy for evidence on allowance for doubtful accounts, which is a an account that's not really, you can't have anything valid to prove. It's more estimates. And he told me that he got it from his gut, and I was like, okay. So I told my boss that the guy got it from his gut, and my boss made me go back. Like, got it from his gut. I can't put it in a report. So yeah, you do have those situations when you first start in your career that people will try to tell you things and you just run with it.
Sure. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. The one thing I do like about accounting, and I don't like it, it's definitely not me. I don't have an analytical mind for it. But one thing I love the fact about accounting is, and students usually generally agree, it takes really one course in college for you to know if you like it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's one of the beauties about the industry because I remember my roommate in college had the exact similar situation as you did. Me and him actually went to the class together. We took it. The first course, I was like, "It's gonna be a long semester," and he's like, "I kind of like it," and I'm like, "What?" And so he actually is has his master's in accounting now and is in the field. So I do like that aspect of it that it's a really quick. Did you come to the realization as fast as he did, like when you sat in that first class, or did you kind of, or you didn't hate it right away, right? You knew that
No,
part.
no, I didn't. I actually, it came that first account class. I would say the 101. It came. I think I made an A out of it. The assets, liabilities, equity. It came natural. And I flew through that class, and I was like, man, this is not too bad. Then it got harder when you went to intermediate, but I knew right then and there that it wasn't. I'm not saying it's an easy career, but I knew I had appreciation for it after that class.
Yeah, and I couldn't even figure out the debited or credited. I still get that confused. So if you can't grasp that aspect, then I think it's time to move on. So yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing that. So the other thing I was going to ask you, what kind of skills do you think you've had or you've worked on that's made you successful in your career? Obviously, you have an analytical mind, you have the
Mhm.
education, but what are some intangible or tangible things that have made you so successful in your career?
That's a great question. I would say on the tangible side, I think we're required to have 40 credit hours every year, regardless of you're certified or not. And those trainings are very, I think exactly the training for us as well, but they're very inspirational. But if you take advantage of them, they're very helpful as well. We have trainers all the time that help us with our mind, and you gotta constantly train the mind. I play a lot of phone games as well to keep your mind going, but you want to keep your mind on high alert. I've recently also lost uh, 70, 60 pounds, so
Congrats.
that's also something that's helped me to focus my mentality in a bit, because you're constantly, your body's at a different level when you get at that level. On the intangible side, I would say the soft skills are important. I do is it in my field is a task called the audit plan. Again, I mentioned earlier that we can't just look at cash, so we have to do an assessment every year with management at the agency to develop the risk, things we want to look at, because we want to get buy-in from them on what we want to do. And that those meetings are personal meetings, interpersonal meetings. So I can't just go in there and say, "Hey, what do you want me to look at?" and that's it. You have to ask them their process, do some research on them, kind of make them feel special, like that you really appreciate you talking to them. So it's kind of networking as well, because people going to remember like, "Hey, that guy really left a good impression." Because we do have some people in the field that don't leave good impressions. And you'd be surprised that wherever you are in your locality, your city, even your state, people talk, and people talk about, hey, I didn't have a bad experience with this guy, and I don't recommend that client. Similar to Zach, like I really, that's why I didn't respond in time, but I really wanted to take advantage of this, because you set a mark with us at AGA, and we really appreciate that in Richmond. But no, you remember that stuff, and that's important. That goes a long way. I've known some people in my career that have all these certifications. They have the CPA, the CISA, the CFE, the financial. But when you talk to them in person, like, I don't know, man. Maybe not. And actually, I know some people who didn't get jobs that had those certifications because they didn't have that interpersonal skills. So those soft skills, yes, people will sometimes push them to the side, but they are important as well.
So thanks for touching on that because that's one of the questions that's sitting in the box right now, and I think you can kind of help us answer that because you have both. You have a very analytical mind as well as you have very good communication skills as well as interpersonal and personal. So most of the students that I meet or the accountants I meet, they really struggle with the communication side. In
Hmm.
other words, they're real analytical, they're numbers oriented, they don't like to do group presentations, they don't like to really talk to people, to be quite honest with you. They're not that extrovert, they tend to be a little bit more introverted.
Hmm. Yeah.
What do you recommend to those people who say I need to get better? What do they need to do to improve? Because I hear that all the time, especially from younger college students. They don't really like to talk in groups, and
Hmm.
they have that internal mind where they're how did you get better at it? Because I'm sure at first you had an analytical mind and you developed these skills over time. What do you have suggest for them?
So that's a great question. I think I've always been an extrovert, but at the same time, there's still trepidation when you go into a meeting with someone that's a top person or whatnot. If you have a meeting scheduled like that, I would encourage the individual. I would challenge them to prepare, to write out notes. I do that in every meeting, and I also research if I'm going to somewhere out the western part of Virginia, or in the case in Georgia, if I go in somewhere in a different part of Georgia, and I don't know anything about the area, and I'm going to this agency, I may research like community service at this agency, and I may break the ice saying, "Hey, I saw that you guys did this community service. How did that go?" And that can get them talking. And then maybe you did some community service as well, and you can say, "Oh, I did that as well," and that can like break the ice, and that can bring the mold into how you want to start the conversation. What I do often is I don't jump right into the analytics. I will ask them how's their day, how's it going, things like that. Not to get too personal, but I would kind of break the ice that way. You don't want to just jump right in. Now, if you're in a meeting that you have all the time, I wouldn't force it. I would let it flow. It's definitely a skill that takes time, but again, I would let it flow in that respect. But if you have a meeting schedule, I would it would help if you had some things written down that you can have some talk on. Now, and what I do too is I don't read from it all the time. I kind of scan it and memorize it as I go on. Because you may have a question being answered from a question ahead that's at the bottom, and you say, "Hey, I see you answered it here," and that also shows that you're analytical there. I'm not even trying to be analytical, but there's ways to be around it. But I think when you have scheduled meetings to help with that feeling that you that introvert feeling, I guess, I think you can do it by having something scheduled, by written out. I mean,
Yeah, I like your advice. The person usually the most organized is the least nervous.
yeah.
And so you may be nervous a little bit at first, but like you said, if you practice what you're going to say and you have notes, there's no reason to be nervous because you're prepared and you're ready to handle it. And then I think something else you mentioned too was is like um just a simple question. I was talking to a journalist a month ago, and he said, one of the things I do to network, he said, I just say, "Hi, how are you doing? How's your day?" And
Yep.
he says that to everybody. And I was like, well, how's that network? And he's like, because I continue the conversations. And you can gauge pretty quickly if you say, "Hey, how are you doing today?" And so, if somebody says, "Good," that they may not want to talk. But if somebody
Mhm.
says, "Hey, I'm doing great. I just got in from Hawaii. It was a great trip." Oh, okay. Well, and those start to really develop your interpersonal skills, and you're able to practice those communication skills. So I appreciate that. So I want to jump over these questions because we had a
Mhm.
couple come in. One student writes in, they were not able to secure an internship in accounting over their 4 year career. They're a senior right now. Will that prevent them from getting a job in accounting?
No, I would not say it will. And I know times right now with the pandemic, I know it can be a challenge, but no, that's not going to stop your career. And actually, um, they will look to you as someone they can mold and shape. And if you're open to it, you can receive that feedback. That's great. Not all internships are work. So I will say I don't want you to be faulted or think because you didn't get an internship, it was you're not you're not you're not behind the other students as well. Reason I say that because one internship I did, it was a lot of games. We didn't do any work. So I didn't I didn't get any type of tangible work benefits from that. So um, yeah, the intern and also people sometimes some internships are bad. Some internships where they have you going to get coffee and
Right.
you're doing some things where you may not want to do. So, but again, it's I'm not knocking the internships. I had great experience with mine, and I had the opportunity to do some work. I interned with Deloitte before I started full time, but I would say no. That's not gonna stop you from getting. I would just keep trying for sure. But I would say that's not gonna stop you.
Gotcha. And then another person writes in, how do I decide if I want to major in finance or accounting? What's the major difference?
Financial. That's two good choices. It's definitely two good choices. I would think about if which way do you want to go in your life, and sit down and have a reflective. This may sound weird. With conversation with yourself, or just write some things out, the path that you want to go. Some people with a financial degree may want to help people with their personal finances. They may want to go to the investment side and works on the stocks and bonds. With accounting, you want to. It's going to be on the grand scheme of things. You're going to do a lot of things with compliance. Finance has compliance as well, but accounting may be more compliance driven. Also, you can get the opportunity to do investigations, probably with accounting or auditing as well. I have an appreciation with that. So I would sit down and think about earnestly what you want to do in the coming years. Yeah, I truly think they could interchange at some point in your career, but they could also very well go uh, the opposite direction. So I would sit down and think about what you want to do, and look to what do you like more as well. A lot of people, like, I really enjoy what I do because it's passion. I feel like I'm helping someone. I actually have a meeting after this with someone to discuss our travel plans. Oh, that's also a thing too. I love to travel, um, but I also had a lot of opportunity to travel with auditing and accounting. So that's think about something that as well.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. And that looks like a question that comes from, a student, maybe a freshman or sophomore. Like Thomas said, get some plugged into some internships. Maybe you want to do a finance one and maybe you want to do an accounting one too. And
Mhm.
also get plugged into your career service center. They can kind of guide you which kind of paths based on your personality. And I would talk to your professors, do some job shadowing for sure. And, but like you said, I think also too, when you hit those 101 courses that can kind of tell. I liked finance actually, but I knew I didn't want to do it, if that made sense. Where accounting,
Right.
I was like, no way. So I think you can get appreciation for your coursework as well. So Thomas, I really appreciate this. This has been a fascinating interview. We've learned a lot from an auditing side. I'm so glad you came on. I
Absolutely.
know we have a lot of students that are interested in the accounting and analytics field. So we know you're extremely busy. You got a lot going on, but anytime you can give back, and we really appreciate the advice and the help.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate this.
All right. Well, you have a happy new year and take care.
You too. Bye bye.